Hi, I'm Shane with the Drum Center of Portsmouth in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We are the largest independently owned drum store in the world, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing an unboxing video of my new drum set. We're going to start with the bass drums. Oh, look at that. It's gorgeous. It's sycamore, which is the black pinstripe. Gorgeous. That sycamore is gorgeous. Oh, I'm excited to have two kicks. That's gonna be so fun. This looks like a mahogany. It's a maple mahogany kit. Wow. This is an exciting one. I've never had a gong drum. Not even sure how I'm going to mount this one yet.
That's what she said. Or he said.
Oh right, it had legs put on it. Awesome. That smells delicious. Concert time. Oh, I'm so excited to have concert times. There's the 10. Hello, new friend. Oh, man, that's... That's a big rack tom. Wow. Oh, man.
He's just a little guy.
That's awesome. Ah, 13. Have to have a 13. Oh, man. So the sizes of this kit, there's a lot of drums. When I spec'd it all out, I wasn't sure if I would be using them all at the same time, and I still am not sure. But I wanted to have the voices available to me should they be required if I'm in a recording environment. So I decided to get a bunch of drums, and we felt it would be fun to set them all up at once. I can only equate it to the first time I drove in Ireland on the other side of the road. It felt very strange to play, and it's definitely going to take quite a while for me to get acclimated to the whole rig, because obviously it's enormous. The sizes I wanted to go with on this kit, I knew I wanted 23-inch bass drums, and that was where I had to start, because only DW offers 23-inch bass drums, and I just love the idea, because I love 24-inch bass drums, I love 22s, but why not have that extra in between? I went with a 15-inch depth. In general, I tend to prefer a 16-inch deep bass drum, but I have found myself really drawn to a lot of 14-inch deep bass drums, so I knew I would be happy with 15. It would also give me enough room to slide that mount back and forth on the bass drum. I could definitely say that, after playing these, it's going to take me so long to get familiar with these drums, especially having two bass drums. It's a lot more humbling getting on two single pedals, because it's two different surfaces. So it feels very strange for me today to play these two bass drums, and it's going to take me some work to get comfortable with it. The concert toms are 6, 8, 10, 12. Now, again, I don't know if I'll use all these at once, but I had to have those. For the rack toms, I went with 8 by 7, 10 by 8, 12 by 9, 13 by 9, 14 by 12, and 16 by 14. I wanted a little extra depth on the 14 and 16 to get that extra resonance. And for the floor toms, I went with the 16-16, which I have over here, and an 18 by 16. I really like the symmetrical feel of having two floor toms like this. It just feels very natural. Gong drum is a 20 by 16. Now, I've had a couple of kits with 20-inch floor toms, and I absolutely love them. Snare drum, believe it or not, I did not get a snare drum with this kit because I actually have a ton of snare drums. The snare drum we're using to demo is another maple mahogany snare drum, which sounds great. The ordering process for this was really interesting because all of a sudden I became you. I was the consumer that was looking to order a kit. And I found myself completely paralyzed looking at all the options that DW offers. And then I had to take my own advice after a while and say, just go with your gut. I knew I liked maple and mahogany, so I just went with a straight maple mahogany. Because a lot of times, I guess the best way to put it, I think it's wonderful that the drum companies have allowed us to optimize every single drum on the kit, be it through a different bearing edge or a different shell layup, different thickness. But at some point it gets to, hey, just shut up and play, right? And I knew that maple mahogany blend was going to sound good, and it does. The other thing that I'm really glad I did, and this is really critical, is that I don't care for DW's drum heads. I know that they have their fans and people like them, and when I hear other people play them, I think it sounds great. But when I play them, something doesn't feel right. Now the reason is they are crimped heads. You know, I grew up when glued heads were a thing at that point, and glued heads still are the standard. That's what I'm familiar with, and crimped heads just feel and sound different to me. And so when the drums came in, I took off the heads, tops and bottoms. The only original heads are actually the front heads that are on the bass drums. And I just put coated ambassadors on the top, clear ambassadors on the bottom. And so when I did tune them up and played the toms, I love how melodic they are. I love how dynamic they are and how open they are. The 12 and the 13 just are absolutely gorgeous. They're just very open, they're resonant. There's no dissonance or any weirdness going on with them. They have a real musical sound, and I couldn't be any more pleased with them. When it comes time for you to order your dream DW kit or a kit from any of the other manufacturers, that's what we do. We specialize in this. So give us a call or come on in, shoot us an email. We're happy to help you build that drum set of your dreams. I made the decision to order this drum set over a year ago now, and it's perfect that it coincides with DW's 50th anniversary because, you know, I'm in my 24th year of drum retail and my 14th year of owning this business. I just have a lot of admiration for what Don Lombardi and John Good created with Drum Workshop. I felt a real symbiosis, a synchronicity, if you will. If you're not familiar with their story, they started Drum Workshop with very little, next to nothing. They had bought the tools and dies from the Camco drum company and started in a very tiny little facility and started making the drum thrones and eventually the drum pedals. And now look at where they are. Don has spent years perfecting drum hardware as we know it, constantly improving the way pedals, stands perform. And John spent all that time working on drum shells. That's what's beautiful about being a small business, is that there's really nobody there to tell you no. And they really came up in a time when American drum companies were not doing so well. If we go back to, say, the 60s and the 70s, these legendary companies like Ludwig and Gretsch, Slingerland, Rogers, by that time, the people who had built or maintained or were caretakers for those companies, they sold out to much bigger companies. Those bigger companies put those brands in their portfolio, but they didn't really put a lot of money into them to bring us innovation and bring you more value. And it just so happened at that time, the imports were really coming in, and companies like Tama and Pearl and Yamaha were bringing much more modern, advanced hardware that was better. But there were also new sounds, because in Japan, they were using the wood that is indigenous to that area. A lot of that is birch or mahogany or luan. And so people weren't familiar with those sounds. It was a whole new sound. The best way to describe that sound is listen to the drum fills in YYZ. And there you have it. And then of course there's the Yamaha Recording Custom. Now these drums had the long lugs, the birch shells. They had a very dry, pointed attack. Perfect for the 1980s because it was all about isolation. As I've learned, what goes around comes around, and people are always going to go back to that original warm tone of maple drum shells. And at that time, there was only one company that was really on the rise doing that, and that was a very small company out of California called Drum Workshop. The 90s come around, and they were poised to really just be the drum company bringing us premium maple shells. At that time, all these other companies were giving us red, white, and black drums. DW brought us that classic maple shell sound that we knew and loved. And then John brought us all of these gorgeous, exotic drum finishes. It's almost like that perfect storm. You know, the timing was just right, and they were ready for it. When I came into retail, it was a great time. DW was really on the rise, and it was just hard not to love their story. And they were putting out these promotional videos called The American Dream, and that's really what they did. They built a company out of nothing into what it is today, which is one of the premier drum manufacturers of all time. And I was thinking about, you know, when I started this company, I started with just me, with next to nothing. And the amount of work that goes into trying to build a company, it takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work, and the intention has to be right. I don't doubt for a second that when they were designing their hardware and working on drum shells, they were thinking, you know, how can we make this cost less, or how can we sacrifice quality? It was, no, how do we improve this? How do we make this better? How do we make drummers sound better and perform better? And when I wake up in the morning, it's what can I do to make the drum community a better place? What can I do to make this a better store to work at for my employees? What can I do for my customers to make it a better experience? It's what drives me, and it's what I live for. It's not about how much money can I make or how can I cut corners. It's not that at all, because people that are driven by that, they don't last. There has to be a sincerity there, and it's there with DW. There's marketing and all of that. You don't have to like the drums, but you can't not admire what they've created. They have brought drum manufacturing to this level single-handedly. When they did the veneers, the different shell options, man, it raised the bar for every drum company. It's interesting that as I say all of this, DW has since been acquired by Roland, so I can't really comment on what that will be like because it's anybody's guess at this point. I could say that if we look back at history, the other drum companies that were acquired, they were acquired by larger companies that weren't in the drum business. Roland is very much in the drum business, and they know the drum business, so that gives me some confidence that the legacy will be in the right hands, and I hope that the innovation is still going to be there, because those are the things that continue to inspire me and drive me as a drummer, but also as a dealer, because I want to bring new sounds to our customers, to you. The main driver for me when I decided to order this kit was, I was actually thinking about, you know, there's going to be a day when Don and John aren't at DW anymore, and we're going to talk about, hey, remember when back then and Don and John were there and how great that was? And I wanted to commemorate that and have something. So this set's going to be my set. Will it be my favorite set? I don't know, but it's mine. And it's something that when I walk by it at my house, I will have those warm feelings of what they created and what I've created. And I'll take a moment and just feel the gratitude as I look at the drums. And then hopefully I'll break a sweat when I play them too.